Lanny helped Samid into the mansion as one of the protectors met them at the door. They got Samid settled into the newly created hospital wing alongside others with various wounds. Quickly, Lanny washed and bandaged her leg, and despite the protector's protest, she went back outside as the sun was setting, just as a large shadow passed overhead. She looked up and saw Cimber flying elegantly out to sea with a passenger, and she wondered briefly what that was all about. But she didn't have time to think about it. She scurried towards her commander, Araya, at their station point, pelting 10-minute sleep spells left and right along the way. Lanny, it was Florence. I need you at the front line. Lanny glanced over at Araya, who nodded. Lanny followed Florence into the entrance, just as a new line of squealing vehicles and marching Quilitary soldiers poured in, yelling wildly. These soldiers had no guns. Rather, their weapons were quite unrecognizable to anyone who had not grown up in a family that collected rusty scrap metal. The Artemians blasted the Quilitary as they arrived, causing a pileup of hard-shelled, stiffened bodies, such that the last vehicles couldn't get through without driving over them. And even most of them, the jalopies conked out. And even most of the jalopies conked out. As darkness settled and the various jungle creatures that could see quite well in the dark came out to fight, the confusion grew. Lanny positioned herself behind a tree, finding it difficult to tell who was a friend and who was a foe. And then a rumor spread its way to her ears. The governors have a, the governors have arrived? Lanny shivered. The governors. Her mind raced back over the previous months as she had struggled with the decision. Would she use lethal weapons? She had ultimately decided that she would not, with one exception. And now she peered out into the darkness and confusion. That exception was slipping inside Arteme and stealing toward her, carrying a pistol in hand, the kind that only the governors owned. The pistol, Lanny knew, was 100 times stronger than the weak pellet guns. I'm going to reread that. I messed it up, I think. And now, as she peered out into the darkness and confusion, that exception, her dad, was slipping inside Arteme and stealing towards her, carrying a pistol in hand, the kind that only the governors owned. The pistol, Lanny knew, was 100 times stronger than the weak pellet guns that some of the Quilitary had. One shot could kill a full-grown human or beast. Lanny reached into her vest, her eyes narrowing as she glued them on her father. She took out her one and only throwing star, which Samid had given her when she'd asked him for it months ago. She pressed the metal to her lips and whispered an incantation as her father slipped along the wall, darting between the trees, his pistol gleaming whenever it caught a ray of moonlight. She followed him to a clump of trees. He's going to hide, lie in wait. What a coward! She grew angrier and angrier as the thoughts of the purge flooded back to her. How his shame must have been so great that he could not even acknowledge her goodbye at the gate. A coward, she thought over and over and over again, until it became a challenge to her to make him admit it was so. Beg me not to kill you. See how it feels. All she knew was that she would not give her father a chance like Samid had done for his father. She had learned her lesson well enough today. She crept closer and watched him from 10 feet away, thinking how stupid he must be not to notice he was being followed. Your intelligence and your strength won't save you now, dear father. Lanny shifted to get a better view. She couldn't see what her father was doing. As she moved around the tree trunk, her vest caught on a tiny branch. It snapped off. Lanny froze as Senior Governor Haluki turned sharply at the noise. "Who's there?" he whispered sharply. Lanny held her breath, and then, because she was not a coward like her father, she stepped out from behind the tree and into the shadows. "Ooh, Claire?" Senior Governor Haluki said uncertainly. Why would he say Claire? Fingered her weapon, the metal growing hot in her fingers. Lanny stepped closer, her rage increasing. "No, father," she spat. "It's me. Or have you forgotten me, like all the others conveniently forgot their children?" A tiny sob caught in her throat as she twisted her arm behind her expertly, just as Samid had taught her, and prepared to fire. Governor Haluki sucked in a breath. "Oh, Lanny," he whispered. He glanced over his shoulder in each direction and then stepped towards his daughter, holding out his hand just as she snapped her wrist and sent the deadly star in flight. Ooh, this is going to get bad. "No, Lanny, you don't understand," he cried. The star struck him at an awkward angle. As he fell to the ground, rolling and writhing wildly in pain, his body transformed into an enormous gray wolf. He took off running, tripping, limping into the night. The gun lay gleaming on the ground where he had stood. Ooh. So I don't know what that was. Hopefully I come back to it. Simber, with the unconscious bleeding Alex cradled gently in his enormous jaws, and the captured, now thawed, terrorized Aaron hanging on to Simber's neck for dear life, nodded to Mr. Today and sped fluidly along the shore, leaped into the air, and flapped his powerful wings. He rose up high enough to clear the great wall and flew in a direct path, this time at his top speed, over the barbed wire ceiling that covered the land of Quill. Aaron cried desperately in fear all the way, knowing that falling would mean certain death, but that hanging on might give him another option, eventually. Mr. Today cruised around the perimeter in the boat, which could magically sense the reefs and rocks in the dark. As the waves pounded the sides of the craft, the weary man's eyes filled with grief. He whispered, constantly pulling at his hair. "Not Alex. Please, not him. It can't happen like this. Marcus, you careless fool. How many more deaths will you be responsible for?" When he neared Arteme, he slowed and cast the anchor spell. Simber, without either boy now, swooped to within sight in the moonlit evening, and the man climbed nimbly on the cheetah's back. "How is he?" Marcus asked in a low voice. "Still alive," Simber said. "Your enchantment of the vest may have saved him." "And the twin Aaron?" Simber roared in frustration. "He screamed and pounded the whole way. Finally he jumped as we flew over the inlet at the shore of Arteme. I expect he'll have drowned by now or be eaten by sharks. I left him It was more important to get Alex inside. He's lost a lot of blood. And indeed the blood had stained Simber's sandstone mouth and neck, making him look fiercer than ever. But we have other troubles right now. Justine is holding a pistol on Claire. Gunnar is missing. Florence was hit by an out-of-control vehicle, and she's lopped off at the knees. Octavia is now Septavia. Oh, get it? Octavia means 8. Oct means 8. Sept means 7. Octavia is now Septavia. She lost a tentacle, but she'll regenerate. Sean and Megan are on the roof playing sniper. Egads, also. Mr. Today gazed across Arteme, counting the remaining Quillins, and then mused over his spell, strengths, and capabilities. There are less than 100 of them left, he said. I think I can stop the remaining ones now on my own, and Quill has seen enough to know we are a strong force to be reckoned with. They'll think twice about fighting us again, which means our future is safe from further attacks. Yes, my friend, it's time. You and I both know the only spell that will end this. I hate to do it. It won't hurt them. That's exactly why I hate to do it. Oh, sorry. I hate to do it. It won't hurt them. That's exactly why I hate to do it, growled the cheetah. Though you might catch air, though you might catch air in it, which would keep him out of our hair for now. Mr. Today patted the cheetah's smooth neck. You had your moment of glory in the palace, Sim. You saved Alex, and you'll have another one soon. In the meantime, Claire will be all right, won't she? I certainly hope so. Justine won't shoot her without me there. She'll want me to be witness to it. I'm sure she thinks it'll be symbolic. Mr. Today's voice was bitter. I imagine Claire knows that too. All right then, it's settled. Here we go, my friend. Simber took a pass along the seashore, from mansion to jungle. As Mr. Today held out his hand over the lawn, back and forth they flew. Mr. Today keeping his hand out and concentrating very hard to hold the spell on so many people. Simber being very careful to weave just so across the property, trying not to miss any of it.